Good morning, all. Wagwan. It is so great to be with you all again. I hope you had a great holiday weekend. This episode will be focused on voting from abroad. We have some great news for you. As American citizens living in Jamaica, you can express your voice through vote, and submit your ballots through the embassy. We're really excited to have a special guest with us, Rohan. He has been with the U.S. Embassy for just shy of 20 years. He brings with him a wealth of experiences from various sections in the embassy, and he will be sharing his perspective on American citizens voting from Jamaica, as well as his process of participating in Jamaican elections, as this is a democratic country. I will let Rohan introduce himself. Rohan?
Hi, thank you, Mario. I'm Rohan Wilson, as Mario indicated earlier. I am with the embassy now for just under 20 years. I work with the American Citizen Services. I've worked in the consular section for just under 15 years. I've worked through the visa units, and I'm now currently with the ACS. And it's a pleasure for me to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Rohan. Rohan, I'm curious, what is your thoughts on democratic elections? What role do they play here in Jamaica?
Well, like every other democratic nation, the democratic process is imperative for it's important, because if individuals require or like a particular brand of leadership, then they should exercise their right in ensuring that that brand of leadership uh, goes forward in terms of the leadership of the country, because the leadership of a country is very important for how you want your country to move forward. And collectively, you have to, it's important to exercise your rights to vote to ensure that your particular brand of leadership is put forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Rohan. I think that's one of the great things about FVAP, the Federal Voting Assistance Program. That's fvap.gov. You can go and register for your federal postcard application. And once you receive your federal postcard application, you can fill that out, ensure that you have postage, and drop it off here to do, as Rohan said, express your vote in the brand of party that you would like. Both the U.S. and Jamaica have a multi-party representative democracy, and regardless to which side you are on, your voice matters, and you can express that voice through FVAP by registering for your federal postcard application. We do look forward to fielding your questions today. I'm sure there won't be any visa-related questions. Additionally, Rohan, you have a number of dual citizen friends, both U.S. citizens and Jamaican citizens. Can you tell me about their process in voting from Jamaica?
Well, that's a very good question. And so, additionally, uh, along with my friends, there are probably just under 30,000 American citizens, both naturalized Americans and born Americans who have chosen to live in Jamaica. And one of the things that we have experienced over the years is Americans, predominantly naturalized Jamaican Americans, they show up at the embassy on election day to cast a vote. So they are viewing the election process in a similar way to how it occurs locally in Jamaica, where you show up on election day to a polling station to vote. And that's really not how it works. In order for you to be able to cast a vote in the US as an absentee, and by that I mean as an American citizen who lives abroad, you must first register to vote. And if you're not registered to vote, you cannot vote. After registering to vote, then you have to request an absentee ballot, and that will either be mailed to you in the regular mail, or in some instances it is electronically sent to you. And once you receive that electronic ballot, or that absentee ballot, then you fill it out, and you're allowed to mail it back to the US. using either a legitimate courier service, or you can drop it off here at the U.S. Embassy, as you indicated before, and we can have that sent off in a pouch. That generally takes just about 4 weeks, 3-4 weeks, thereabout.
Awesome. Thanks, Rohan, for sharing that. I'm sure there are a number of U.S. citizens who would like to vote at the last minute, but it is important to keep in mind that, as you mentioned, the U.S. Embassy is not a polling station, simply a channel in which you can submit a vote, and we will mail that to the respective state. Right. Additionally, we have primary and general elections. For your primary elections, you have your also your local elections. Whichever state permits absentee voting, they also have deadlines. So it's very important to visit fvap.gov to determine which states and the deadlines that they have for voting absentee. And for general elections, you do have your, by August 1st, it is mandatory to submit your absentee ballot in order to participate in the general election, which occurs every November, the first Tuesday after the first Monday of the month. And Rohan, thank you for sharing that again with regards to your experience interaction with dual nationals. Can you tell me more about, you mentioned the number of Jamaican Americans, I should say, or Jamaicans who also have U.S. citizenship here. When they go about voting, do they fly back to the states at times? Is there some confusion in which they don't know about the absentee voting process?
That's a very good question again. And again, that comes down to a matter of choice. There are some persons who will absolutely prefer the physicality of flying back to the US and casting their vote. They want to be sure that their vote for their brand of politics is represented. The fvap.gov website that you mentioned is really a very, very useful tool for absentee voting. And so, though I mentioned that there are some Americans who would prefer to fly back, you do not have to, unless this is why it is referred to as absentee voting. You can cast your ballot remotely from any country that you reside in at the time by following some very simple steps. And the fvap.gov website is actually very, very easy to use. It's probably literally the easiest website I've ever used. Once you go on, and I believe it is particularly designed for older folks, because the print is really large. The boxes that you're filling in, it's really large. And you can even go on, put your basic bio information in and click on check to see if you're registered to vote, and it will tell you whether or not you're registered to vote. Coupled with that, it has a link for every single state in the US that you're able to click on, and it will tell you what you need to do in order to, once you click on that link, because states, the procedures from state to state differ, it will tell you exactly what you need to do and how you can go about preparing yourself for registration and an absentee ballot. So yes, you are able to vote from overseas, and the process really is made simpler by fvap.gov.
Awesome. Thank you again for sharing that, Rohan. We really hope that all American citizens, dual nationals, will participate in the upcoming elections. It is your right. It is your voice. We don't want you to miss out on that entitlement. Rohan, can you tell me more about your experience with dealing with American citizens living in Jamaica, but they are unaware that they can vote at a certain age? You know, the voting age, right. The minimum vote is 18. Yes. Do you inform them when you're interviewing American citizens for an expired passport or an initial passport of their entitlement to vote abroad?
That's a very good question. So in recent times, the American Citizen Services section has adopted a new culture. When people come in for just a passport application or a notary service, once they're an American citizen, we take the opportunity to inform them of their right to vote. We inform them of the procedures that it will require for them to be able to vote from overseas or from here in Jamaica. So it is something that we have now begun to undertake in terms of educating our clientele with respect to information as it relates to voting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rohan. And Rohan, we have some inquiries with regards to tourist visas, B1, B2s, or J1 and H2 visas. I just want to remind you all with visa-related inquiries to visit Kingston, or rather to send your inquiries to KingstonNIV@state.gov. There we have vice consuls standing by to answer your concerns. Do know that we are adding additional J1 student and H2 visa appointment availabilities for in-person interviews. And also remember that for your J1 and student visas, we're always required to do an in-person interviews. We cannot conduct a interview waiver for a J1 interview. Please prepare ahead of time by booking your interview appointments in advance. Rohan, back to voting. As an American citizen, I grew up in a home that expressed both liberal and conservative viewpoints, and it's very common in households for parents to be divided. Some parents, one may be more left leaning, the other right leaning. And then the children may just be independent or non-participants. Can you speak to the value of expressing the vote regardless to which side one may be on?
Right. So the culture that you just described with respect to families being divided across opposite side of the political divide is actually one that is quite common here in the grand scheme of things, where the local voting landscape is concerned. It's very common, but it's also important to, I think, as time goes by, the voting public are beginning to learn the value of exercising their right and exercising their right based on the issues that are facing them. And so it is becoming more common that people are no longer culturalized by older family members or friends, but based on their own issues. It is important that one exercises their right, but why you exercise your right is another question that one should look into. And if I'm going to be voting according to how my father voted, for example, what's the real purpose of my vote? Am I really exercising the right that I have? So I think it's very important that people think about their political affiliation, not necessarily the political affiliation of your family members, your older family members, or your friends, but think about your own reasons for wanting to have a particular brand of leadership, as I have indicated before.
Oh, thanks for sharing that, Rohan. I totally agree. Being an educated voter, some just for being affiliated with your family or not wanting to offend a tradition, a family tradition, and taking another route in how you express your vote is totally acceptable in the democratic system. And I think that's a great privilege that we have to exercise. So, do know that your vote counts, and that based on the issues that you want addressed, you can always research the candidate that you want to represent you and that you feel that will represent your views best, and therefore cast your vote or your ballot in favor of that candidate. We do have a question with regards to paying taxes in order to vote. Do know that voting for candidates for federal offices, it does not affect your federal or state tax liability. Additionally, voting for candidates for state or local offices could affect your state tax liability. Therefore, we're not legal consultants, so we would advise you to consult your legal counsel if you have questions with regards to voting and your tax status being affected by that. We also want to remind you that we are currently, the interview waiver program is in effect only for qualified B1, B2 applicants. Additionally, for H2 and C1D applicants. For more information, you can, on the interview waiver program, you can visit ais.usvisa-info.com. I repeat, ais.usvisa-info.com. Rowan, we do have a question with regards to how can you send your ballot back to the states? You did speak to that. You mind repeating that?
Absolutely. So again, one just has to recognize that there is a process to be exhausted, and the process begins with registering to vote. fvap.gov is where you can do that, and once you go to fvap.gov, you can the most basic thing you can do on that is to check, see if you are registered. It will tell you. You will get a nice green tick that tells you that you're registered or not. If you're not registered, that's a perfect opportunity for you to go ahead and exhaust the procedures that allow you to register. It is really a very easy to use website. Once you have registered, then you can request your ballot. The ballot will either be sent to you electronically or in the mail. That's all dependent on the state. And registration requirements differ from state to state. You're usually required to provide some very basic information, and that could be your name, date of birth, in some instances, the last 4 digits of your social security number. In other instances, your zip code and your address. The links on fvap.gov will tell you exactly what you need. Once you have your absentee ballot and you have filled it in correctly and prepared it, you can put that in a sealed envelope, address it with the postage, the relevant postage, and a return address. And we have a drop box here at the US Embassy right on the outside in that same space where you would normally find visa applicants. It's a big red, white, and blue box that says voting. And you can just pass by on any day. You don't need an appointment for that. And you can drop your ballot off, and we'll mail that off for you through the pouch. It shouldn't take more than just about 3 or 4 weeks to get there. So generally speaking, that's how the process works.
Thank you so much, Rowan, for explaining that. Also, some states do allow fax or emails. You would have to visit fvap.gov to verify if your particular voting state allows that. We are getting a number of inquiries with regards to immigrant visas. And just a reminder, for all immigrant-related, visa-related questions, please send your inquiries to KingstonIV@state.gov. Again, that's KingstonIV@state.gov. For non-immigrant inquiries, that would be KingstonNIV@state.gov. Ron, we have another inquiry about how long before an election will I get my ballot? Typically, that's between 45 days before November general elections. Your state will send you a blank ballot either electronically or via the mailing address you provided on your FPCA, which is your federal postcard application. Ballots will generally be mailed out 30 days before primary, special, and runoff elections. Depending on your state and your status abroad, you may receive absentee ballots for all elections or abbreviated ballots for federal office elections only. Rowan, you gave a very detailed response with regards to mailing out your ballots. What are your thoughts on vetting I would assume some American citizens would attempt to send their ballots through perhaps a non-secure postage stamp or secured mailing apparatus. Do you have any concerns with fraud there to raise?
I'm not quite sure if I'm qualified to say I have a concern with fraud, but the recommendation is the recommendation that we have is that you send the ballots through a legitimate courier service, So clearly there, as far as I'm concerned, it does not speak to sending your ballot off through the regular mail. Sending it off through the embassy via a pouch or a legitimate courier service is what I believe will work best.
Awesome. Thank you, Rowan. And some of those services would include FedEx, DHL,
Yes.
UPS. That would be at your expense. If you are mailing at short notice, it is highly recommended that you use these expedited services to get your ballot delivered on time. Please note that FedEx does not deliver to PO boxes. Again, visit fvap.gov for further information with regards to your ballots, submitting your ballots. Rowan, you've mentioned some great points on voting and just the privilege to vote. And you mentioned voting as an educated voter and voting on issues. Can you provide perhaps a time when you were just learning that you could vote, that you had an issue that you wanted to address, and how did you go about voting for the right candidate?
Um,
Or you can speak also hypothetically how you would go about voting for a candidate based on an issue that
sure.
you're
So
passionate about.
in our own Jamaican voting landscape, where the political system is completely different from the US, I believe Jamaica uses the Westminster style of voting, which is traditional to the British culture. For many years, Jamaica, I believe, experienced what I would refer to as tribal culture, where if you were born, for example, in a certain community, you would have automatically been aligned. There have been times when one political party, for example, has been in leadership for many, many years. And I can remember a particular time when, in my own opinion, I believe the vote swung towards another party when many individuals, many persons who now became qualified to vote, in my opinion, swung that election. And it was clear that they probably voted on issues, or they voted because they now had a mind of their own. They were now qualified to vote, and they had issues of their own that they probably were not seeing being addressed. So it again is really very important to vote based on issues. Once you become qualified to vote based on age, you should exercise your vote, and you also should vote for the right reasons.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Rowan. Rowan, we do have a question. It's non-voting, but it is American Citizen Services related from Angie. Angie asks, how can I receive a date to authenticate a death certificate of a U.S. citizen who died in Jamaica?
That's a very good question, Angie. Now, to authenticate a death certificate of a U.S. citizen who died in Jamaica, you can take that local death certificate to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in New Kingston on Dominica Drive, and they will authenticate that certificate. If you require to have a report of death certificate produced for your deceased relative, then you can contact us. You can actually visit our website and go to the American Citizen Services option. And the website is jm.usembassy.gov. Go to the American Citizen Services option and click on deaths. We do have a worksheet there that we will require for you to fill in. And from that point on, we will help you to produce 20 copies of a report of death certificate that you may use to process insurance matters back in the US, or other matters that you may deem necessary. But as it relates to authenticating the local death certificate, that can be done at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the local Jamaican Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Dominica Drive in New Kingston. And once that is authenticated, if you desire to have a notary service to authenticate that signature, then we can absolutely take care of that as a notary service.
Rowan, thank you so much for that response. And Angie, thank you for that question. Again, if you have further questions with regards to your death certificate, you can always email us at kingston@state.gov. Kingston ACS at state.gov. Lastly, as we wrap up, Rowan, I just wanted to speak to the anonymous value of your vote. It is a personal experience that no one has to know which party, which issues you're voting on. That is a personal experience. And as Rowan mentioned, the tribal nature that exists among voters, the colors, the names, the brand names, regardless to which side you partake in, it is all part of the democratic system, which makes us diverse in our approach. It makes us stronger as a country.
Absolutely.
We can also experience the power of a stretching democracy that is open for dissent and disagreement, but we can also always rally behind democracy. As we close, I would like to just give you an update on consular operations. The consular section is currently open for limited visa services. We are constantly adjusting our operational posture based on our own resource limitations and local circumstances. As you all are aware, the local Jamaican government just relaxed a number of the former COVID mitigations. Thankfully, we're mask free here in the embassy, and perhaps in the coming days we will see mask free applicants. We continue to have limited capacities to provide U.S. citizen and visa services. We also have been scheduling a larger number of immigrant visa appointments. We've been processing 1,000 or more immigrant visa applicants per month over a few months to address a large backlog due to the pandemic and those who've been waiting for many months. I repeat, we've been processing over 1,000 immigrant visas. I know a number of you all are still waiting. Do know that we're working as hard as we can to get to your case. To expedite a request, you should be submitted to the National Visa Center, following their requirements. That would be the National Visa Center following their requirements. We strongly recommend against submitting expedited requests directly to the embassy or through your congressional offices. Neither of these options will guarantee an expedited immigrant visa application. Also, due to the prioritization guidelines, we are only able to process a small number of tourist visa appointments. The wait time for a tourist visa is about 24 months, just a short 24 months. Expedited appointments are available to those with an urgent need for travel that meets our criteria. Be advised, only cases or life-saving medical needs or an emergency involving a direct family member, such as a parent, a sibling, or family member, will be honored. Please do not request an emergency appointment for the purposes of discretionary travel at this time. That is our current status, our consular operational status. We are very pleased to see an uptick in applicants due to the waning of COVID restrictions. But again, just to remind you all about voting absentee, we are here to assist you with any questions. And I would like to ask Rohan if he has any closing remarks with regards to voting from abroad or any American Citizen Services
Thank you.
issues.
It is very important that if you have made a decision to vote early. Get registered early. fvap.gov works. It's really easy to use. Get on early, request your ballot, receive your ballot, fill it in properly, follow the procedures, and vote early. The U.S. Embassy is not a polling location where you walk in on election day to vote. So you may end up, not so happy with your decision if you wait to do that. So we encourage everyone to vote early.
Thank you so much, Rohan. And again, just a reminder for the interview waiver questions, visit ais.usvisa-info.com. Again, that's ais.usvisa-info.com. Also visit travel.state.gov There you will find the latest on Jamaica and any other country you care to visit with regards to the travel advisory notices at travel.state.gov. I echo my colleague Rohan's remarks. Please register early to vote. Your voice does matter. We look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care.